Hey, this is Vu, and I'm going to quickly apologize. I might sniffle or cough at some point in this video because I have a little bit of a cold. However, I kind of tried to delay making this video for 4 or 5 days, hoping that I would feel better, but it's not kind of going that way, and I don't want to not put a video out, within a reasonable amount of time of making my I'm returning video. So I'll go ahead and make this one. And this one's going to be a bit of a strat calling video. And generally this is just going to be a little bit about a philosophy for the way that you can play overpass to maximize your wins. Like the general, in my opinion, best way to play overpass as a philosophy. So the places you generally want to hit as much as possible, things you can do mid, late round when certain situations arise. And this isn't intended to be something where I can show you a bunch of strats, where I'm going to show you all of my executes or something like that. This is going to give you an idea of things you can do, and so that you can kind of create your own strats around that and work to your own strengths, because I think trying to just copy someone else's strategies is generally not a great idea. I think the best thing to do, and what really helped me when I was a little bit newer, was there was a site called One Source, and he kind of had a similar thing like this, where he talked about ways he liked to play out maps and things like that, so I could create my own strategies off of that, and I feel like that definitely helped. So the first thing I'd like to say is I think any team that plays overpass without focusing primarily on short B is generally playing overpass in a little bit of a flawed way, in my eyes. Now, some teams might not have a whole lot of success on short B, and so you might want to go somewhere else, especially if against certain teams you're not having a lot of success, and you want to have something to fall back on. But on both sides of the map, I think the most successful strategy in general is to focus as much as possible on short B, and I'll show you quickly the easiest way, in my opinion, to get that control on T side is just have a player come up here, aim into this little dot here, then you're going to put your lighter in the middle of this little square thing here, like so, and then you're going to run and throw as this leaves your screen, and that'll pop up. And if you do it correctly, which obviously I can do a million times in a row until the video is live, let's try this one more time. Wow, that actually, wow. Okay, this is some next level gameplay right now, because I've done this a million times before. There we go. So I threw it a little bit too late. That was the problem there. But the whole point is it's going to land right there, which is going to, for a lot of people, either prevent them from going short, they're going to have to waste a smoke on it, or they're going to have to take quite a bit of damage to get here. And you follow that Molotov up quickly with a deep flash, something like that. And that's going to land deep in here. It's going to blind anybody sitting in this corner hiding at sandbags, anybody boosted up or spotting, and it's going to give a pretty easy way to take control of short. You can also double this up with a flash off the wall, or water there, sorry, to try and make this even better, especially for a player that comes around here that might be not necessarily blind to that in unfortunate scenarios. But I don't think that's necessarily needed. And you can just have two players come straight through here, and you can just get free short control. And now the reason I think short control is so strong is because as soon as you get short control, stairs is now something the counter terrorist can't really hold control of, because it's so easy to pinch from a player at ladder and short B here that there's really no way you can successfully hold on to this with any real consistency. So they have to give this up. And then as soon as they give up stairs, then they have a flawed hold on bathrooms as well, because then they can't successfully or reliably fall back through lane here. And if you can only fall back through bathrooms, there's really only a few ways you can try and get entries without having the terrorist team be able to just quickly trade off or go 1 for 1, maybe 1 for 2 at worst if you hit some sick shots. So basically, by taking short, you've automatically got control of stairs, you've really messed with their control of bathrooms, and all the CTs are going to have is control of long A here. Whereas, if you go for bathrooms control first, which I think is flawed because of the way an opper can find a pick nearly every time, what do you have control of? Well, they can still hold control of stairs and short, and taking control of either of these is kind of tough because if the doors open, they can support each other. Stairs is a pretty weird angle to try and actually peek down successfully with any sort of consistency. Really, going for bathrooms control early doesn't give you much total map control, whereas going for short control early gives you a ton of map control on the other side of the map just through pressure on from the spots that you actually do control. Now, after you go for that short control, generally I think on this map the best way by far to run the map in high numbers scenarios is executes, because I think that it's very, very hard, especially if you don't have information on where the terrorist team is. For example, if your team sometimes aggresses it short, tries to find a pick, sometimes goes up and makes full control of bathrooms, then executes A, and sometimes comes, takes short, and then kind of hides, then their team really has no information. They sometimes are going to want to push short if they feel like you're very often, when you're not visible on short, you're always in bathrooms. But then by throwing in this setup where you just kind of take short control and then you kind of hide, they're not going to be able to do that with any real consistency, and that's really going to mess with their strategy, because generally on CT side I would be recommending this, where if the enemy team has short control and they're pressuring bathrooms, we want to get aggressive somewhere, especially at short, because short is such a good area where you can pop flash, get out, and you get so much information by having short. If the terrorist team does not have control of short, they can't take anywhere on the map towards B, really. They can only go A if you have short control. So this is why it's so important on both sides. Now, as for the executes you can actually do, the two ways you can do it on pretty much every map, you can do the aggressive setup where you try and get site control and then get a bomb plant off of that, or you can do the more passive setup where you try and get a bomb plant and then just play after plant from the safely guarded angles where you already have control of, for example, from long and from short, or maybe even from jail here, but you're not actually getting pushed up into the site. Whereas if you go for the other setup, which would be something like this, you'd have a smoke in heaven, you would have a smoke right here, and you would have a smoke, if you're trying to get pushed up control, you can have a smoke here. And then you have a couple of Molotovs down, you can get a plant, and you have a bit of site control. You can try and contest the water. Now, the way I actually like to run this, rather than this smoke in the middle, I actually like to throw this smoke here. It's a little bit weird. Most people aren't going to really understand it. It's a special way I play the map. Get a free bomb plant, basically, and we actually would have a player jump through here onto this barrel and try and aggress here, because when there's no smoke here, counter-terrorists are going to tend to want to fight around here because they have a bit of an advantage. So you can kind of bait them a little bit, you can toss flashes, and this player can come through a partial one-way and get some free kills on them, and can get you control of this water, which is really where you want to try and push them off of if you're trying to get this aggressive control. So really, either way works. You can do it in any of a number of ways, but generally that's how I would see it at B. And with this short control, you can go for a fast execute a lot of the time and get that free bomb plant, and especially with the smoke right here, you can get a pretty good free bomb plant and you can defend, and short B is a pretty damn good spot to defend from. The only thing is, the reason I point out this smoke here is because any counter-terrorist can come into this corner here. There's supposed to be a corner here. Okay. Just in this general area, aim right here, toss a Molotov, and that will blow up directly on top of the site. So any normal bomb plant is going to get screwed up by that. And any counter-terrorist team should know this Molotov. This is a pivotal Molotov. It can prevent any team from planting without an extra smoke to use, and a lot of teams use 4, 3, 4, 5 smokes to take this bomb site and don't actually use this smoke here. And so a lot of teams are just going to delay them by quite a while, or even kill their bomb planter by throwing that Molotov. And you can actually throw the same thing from down here, just run forward and throw, and that's going to land just the same and accomplish the exact same thing. So generally you always want to have a smoke saved for that. Now, as for the A execute, of course, you can do the exact same kind of strategy. You can either do a smoke here, plus a smoke here, plus a smoke here. for a triple smoke on the A site and get the free bomb plant, then go from there. Or you can go for the more aggressive setup, and this is especially good against teams that run heavy op setups, and you throw the smoke in there and the smoke on the top of the stairs here, and so you can force them into this situation where an opper is going to have a very hard time rotating in if they don't have knowledge of truck and knowledge of this corner here. It's very hard for an opper to really peek into those angles because there's so many areas that you can be in. So against rifle heavy teams, I would generally try and play this kind of more passive setup, get the bomb plant, play for the retakes. And against an op heavy team, I would play a little bit more aggressive, push the ops back and try and force it into a situation where they have a very hard time rotating in. Now, generally, I think the other thing that's very strong on this map, I mentioned this, was high number scenarios. You want to go for these executes, especially early on in the round. You can go for these quick executes. However, a lot of the time you're going to trade down, back and forth. And I think the other, really the strongest thing you can do late round in something like a 3-on-3 is walk an opper out long B. It's so hard for the enemy team to actually react to this, and this is something you can do on a lot of different maps. However, I think this is one of the best possible maps for it, because if you think about it, where can a solo player holding B hold from? Well, barrels, but barrels is kind of a little bit flawed because as the terrorists come in, they generally will check it, and you're really stuck. There's no real maneuverability. So as soon as they see you, if you don't get that first kill, they're going to be able to trap you and you're not going to be able to move very much. Next, you can hold from here, but of course this is incredibly flawed. I would not recommend playing there with any regularity. You can play from here, which is really bad for holding on to long, or you can play from way back here where you have to be spotting, which gives a free shot to that op coming out long, and you're actually giving up the whole site for a free bomb plant. So really nowhere you can hold as a CT, including heaven, is going to have any consistency at really stopping a bomb plant. So at the very worst, you should probably be able to get a bomb plant if you walk out long B in a 3-on-3, unless something goes horribly wrong. I would not recommend this towards long A because it's just a huge hallway. Maybe you can have an opper try and hold a pick earlier on in the round, but as you get later, it's just so easy for a counter-terrorist team to kind of spot you and kind of delay for a rotate. The same thing goes with bathrooms. I think going A late on in the round, especially in low numbers, is a little bit flawed, unless you kind of have some knowledge or you've put them in a weird situation or something like that. So generally, I would have your team kind of, as you start to go down in numbers, make sure you always hold short control. So this is kind of what I mean by map philosophy. It's the type of thing where it's like, okay, if something happens in the round, your team generally has an idea of what they should be doing on both sides of the map. Excuse me. So for example, if someone at short gets picked, then someone at A kind of knows the general idea of what you might be going for. Now, this isn't as applicable on the T side. I think this is kind of on the T side, it really changes round to round a little bit more than on the CT side, where, for example, if you go down 4-on-5, generally, you know, as I said before, you want to be focusing on short control. So when you go down 4-on-5, more often than not. So generally this is the type of thing where, okay, so the B players know that generally if we go down, if someone gets picked at A, or if someone gets picked at A or stairs or something, you want to, in the middle of the round, in the mid round kind of scenario, try and get aggressive on short to get information. So you can aggress short, and if they're not short, then of course they have to be going in. You really can't take B without having short control. And so by having your team recognize this, you prevent this situation where you might aggress at B and aggress at A at the same time, or your B players might play passive thinking your A players are going to pull something or something like that. Generally, I think that having a general strategy on CT side of what you will usually do when you go down a man or when you end up in a 3-on-3 is the best way possible to play it so that you don't have any real confusion. So on this map, like I said, if you lose short control, and you lose bathrooms control. I would always have my team default to either getting aggressive towards bathrooms, which I think is generally a bad idea. It's very risky to go here. So this is only something that I would recommend if, kind of like, oh, these A guys have a feeling, and so they're going to call that they're going to push it. Or more default, I would get the B guys to try and get a little bit of information at short, because you can't just give up bathrooms and short control. It's far too easy for a terrorist team to do a sick execute and pretty much guarantee at the very least a bomb plant, but also a very good situation in the after plant if you give up bathrooms and short control. So always, the whole point of this map, every setup you should have on CT side should focus on short control in some way, either by boosting up or by having short and door control, because I think these two are necessarily linked. If you have short control and you don't have stairs control, you can't do a quick rotate to the flank, and you can get easily pinched. And if you have door control but not short control, well, obviously that's not very good. So in general, in the mid round, I would suggest this play here, getting aggressive on short. Now, as you get later into the round, I think going a little bit more aggressive towards bathrooms might make a little bit more sense, especially if you still have two players with A, because generally it's a lot easier to rotate from A to B. So you'll often have a little bit more support at A for a late round push if you know where they're going. And if you are, 25 seconds, 30 seconds left in the round, if you come around and you see that bathrooms is fully clear with 30 seconds left, they are almost certainly going B. So that's another thing you can do. Whereas with 45 seconds left, if bathrooms isn't clear, or is clear, sorry, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going B. They could easily come upstairs. They could easily still come A. However, as you get later into the round, I think this going aggressive for a little bit of information at bathrooms gets better and better and better and better in general. Now, the other way you can play is kind of generally, let's say, most of your strategies should focus on the short control, should focus on pressuring short in some way, taking short control. You don't have to take it every round, but it should always be expected that the terrorists have to expend a lot of nades and flashes and effort to get short control, because this is the pivotal point on the map. So every round should have some way of boosting up. You can play you can actually play a pretty easy retake on B if you have short control. So it should be recognized B is kind of the retake site. It's fairly easy to retake it if you don't have long control but you have short control. So short is much more important than that long, and I would play a retake on this site often, whereas you can't really play a retake on A. So what you generally want to be doing on A is doubling up. So generally I would say most rounds, if you have a good opper, you can have him in bathrooms that can really make it scary for the enemy team to actually want to get control of bathrooms, because you can push up, get a pick here, you can get a pick as they cross here with this little spot on the bench here. You can boost up on the bench, you can be over here peeking this, you can play from behind sight, prevent them from getting lane. One of my favorite things to do actually is to throw a smoke down here, and then have the opper in sight, which is actually generally me, toss a flash. Now, I can't quite remember how to throw this flash that it lands perfectly, but you want to have a flash that, oh, there you go, lands a little bit deep here, and this player, as this smoke dissipates, can push through and get a ton of information on this general area, especially when you do a double smoke into this flash. There's, 50, 40 seconds left, and it's starting to get to that point where if you get information that nobody's in here with 40, 35 seconds left, then you're starting to realize that they're almost certainly going B, and you have a very good situation. The other thing you can do occasionally is a double up and kind of give up the middle of the map, and it's a little bit risky. It's a little bit of a gamble, but so long as the enemy team expects that you're going for short control a lot of the time, they're going to be very focused on stairs as they come through the middle of the map, which is going to give your team quite a bit of time to actually rotate around and put yourself in a good situation, even if you don't have the middle of the map control. Anyways, that's kind of just a general idea of how to play it. The other thing you should recognize is how to play in lower number situations. I did mention this already. This 3-on-3 generally one heaven is a good idea. But generally, you have to play both towards A, because A is much harder to retake, especially in low numbers. And I would say that generally in a 3-on-3, you're at such a disadvantage as a CT side. I would tend to get a little bit more aggressive than on other maps where you can still retake a site, you can hold on to both sides. On this map, after plants and trying to retake in a 3-on-3 is a little bit ridiculous. For example, if the terrorists get a free bomb plant on A and then they get bathrooms control, it's pretty damn hard to win this one, you know. And the same thing goes for B. If they get a free bomb plant at B and they get short control, it's pretty damn hard to win that one as well, compared to other maps where it's quite a bit easier to play a little bit heavy towards one side, then rotate it to the other and actually get a decent retake going on there. The other thing I would note is a couple things for retake on A. You can actually come up here and you should be able to throw it a little bit like this, and that's going to smoke off bathrooms, which is a really, really strong smoke actually. And the other thing you can do is you can throw a smoke towards this is long B that bounces right like that, and that's going to have it looks like a gap, but really there's no gap there if you throw it correctly. You just throw it just kind of a little bit below the light here and you're good to go. And the other thing you can do is if you aim at this little line right here, you can throw a Molotov that actually lands on site as well. If you throw that correctly, there you go. That will Molotov off site. So those are a few smokes and nades you can actually throw that will kind of stop this A site retake or A site plant and allow for a little bit slower of a rotate, easier of a retake. I'm very sorry, misspeaking quite a bit here. But generally, I don't know. You guys can tell me if you like this sort of video. I'm winging it a little bit. This is about the 10th try I've had at this video, because I keep forgetting little tidbits of information that I think are significant. But hopefully this makes a little bit of sense as to the reason I'm doing this, you know, because I feel like on every map, I always want my team to have a general idea of what they should be doing or what will be happening at any given moment, so that, you know, it's like, okay, we're in a 3-on-3. Generally, we're going to be doing this, or generally, we're going to be aggressing on this portion of the map. Generally, this is going to be happening, so people can already start to set up early on, and hopefully, this also allows you to kind of get an idea of how this map can be played at a reasonable level and things that are optimal to do that you may not have already thought about. Because generally I would say Overpass is actually, any team I've ever strat called for, Overpass has generally been one of our best maps, just because probably because of the way we play it, really, because I think that a lot of teams don't go for this idea of getting short control consistently, and I think that's 100% flawed. If you don't go for short control consistently with no other reason for it, you know, there might be reasons to not go for short control. You might not be great at it, you might know that this team does something or whatever, or you might be just really sick at certain things that aren't accomplished by short control. But I think in general, not going for short control is a flawed way to play the map. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.